Hi, second graders, it's Miss Schulz. Today I'm going to read to you a folk tale called It Could Always Be Worse. This week in Florida Virtual, we are looking at fables and folk tales, and we're kind of looking at more closely at the challenges that a character faces. So I want you to pay close attention to the challenge and struggle of the main character in this story. And then I also want you to pay attention to both the moral and the central message. Now, in Florida Virtual, the lesson is teaching us that the lesson in a fable is called a moral. What a reader learns, so what you, the reader, learns from the lesson or the moral, that's kind of the central message that the author or the person recounting the story wants you to figure out, to know. You don't really need to know the difference between them. Florida Virtual is just kind of pointing this out to you. So the central message is what the author wants you to know, and it's kind of like the big idea. So you have been learning a little bit about the elements of story, right? So we have the characters, we have the setting, and you have the events, and you have the feeling. So as you go through this read aloud today, I want you to pay special close attention. All right, let's get started. It Could Always Be Worse, a Yiddish folktale retold with pictures by Margaret Samach. Once upon a time, in a small village, a poor, unfortunate man lived with his mother, his wife, and his 6 children in a little one-room hut. Because they were so crowded, the man and his wife often argued. The children were noisy, and they fought. In winter, when the nights were long and the days were cold, life was especially hard. The hut was full of crying and quarreling. One day, when the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it anymore, he ran to the rabbi for advice. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "things are in a bad way with me and getting worse. We are so poor that my mother, my wife, my 6 children, and I all live together in one small hut. We are too crowded, and there's too much noise, so much noise. Help me, Rabbi. I'll do whatever you say." The rabbi thought and pulled on his beard. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, do you have any animals? Perhaps a chicken or 2? "Yes," said the man, "I do have a few chickens, also a rooster and a goose." "Ah, fine," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take the chickens, the rooster, and the goose into your hut to live with you." "Yes, indeed, Rabbi," said the man, though he was a bit surprised. The poor, unfortunate man hurried home and took the chickens, the rooster, and the goose out of the shed and into his little hut. When some days had gone by, life in the hut was worse than before. Now, with the quarreling and crying, there was honking, crowing, and clucking. There were feathers in the soup. The hut stayed just as small, and the children grew bigger. When the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it any longer, he again ran to the rabbi for help. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "see what a misfortune has befallen me. Now, with the crying and the quarreling, with the honking, clucking, and crowing, there are feathers in the soup. Rabbi, it couldn't be worse. Help me, please." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, do you happen to have a goat?" "Oh, yes, I do have an old goat, but he's not worth much." "Excellent," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take the old goat into your hut to live with you." "Oh, no! Do you really mean it, Rabbi?" cried the man. Come now, my good man, and do as I say at once." The poor, unfortunate man tramped back home with his head hanging down and took the old goat into his hut. When some days or a week had gone by, life in the little hut was much worse. Now, with the crying, quarreling, clucking, honking, and crowing, the goat went wild, pushing and butting everything with his horns. The hut seemed smaller, and the children grew bigger. Now, when the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it another minute, he again ran to the rabbi. What do you suppose the rabbi is going to tell the old man? Yeah, the poor man. "Holy Rabbi, help me," he screamed. "Now the goat is running wild. My life is a nightmare." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, is it possible that you have a cow, young or old, doesn't matter?" Yes, Rabbi, it's true. I have a cow," said the poor man fearfully. "Go home then," said the rabbi, "and take the cow into your hut." "Oh, no, surely not, Rabbi," cried the man. "Do it at once," said the rabbi. The poor, unfortunate man trudged home with a heavy heart and took the cow into his hut. Is the rabbi crazy? He thought. When some days or a week had gone by, life in the hut was very much worse than before. Everyone quarreled, even the chickens. The goat ran wild. The cow trampled everything. The poor man could hardly believe his misfortune. At last, when he could stand it no longer, he ran to the rabbi for help. I think we know what the rabbi's going to say. What do you think the rabbi's going to say? "Holy Rabbi," he shrieked, "help me, save me. The end of the world has come. The cow is trampling everything. There's no room even to breathe. It is worse than a nightmare." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Go home now, my poor, unfortunate man, and let the animals out of your hut." I will. I'll do it right away," said the man. The poor, unfortunate man hurried home and let the cow, the goat, the chickens, the goose, and the rooster out of his little hut. That night, the poor man and all his family slept peacefully. There was no crowing, no clucking, no honking. There was plenty of room to breathe. The very next day, the poor man ran back to the rabbi. So, second graders, what do you suppose the rabbi wanted to teach the poor man? Don't you think about that? Yeah. What did the rabbi want the man to learn? "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "you have made life sweet for me. With just my family in the hut, it's so quiet, so roomy, so peaceful. What a pleasure." The end. All right, second graders, thanks for listening. What I want you to do now is I want you to recount the narrative with your friend or with a family member. And I want you to retell the story. And remember, you need to tell the stories in order and give details about each event. And then also, I want you to think about the central message and what it was the author or the storyteller in this case wanted us to learn. What is the big central idea here? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.